If all mankind minus one were of one opinion, mankind would be no more justified in silencing that one person than he, if he had the power, would be justified in silencing mankind. The only purpose for which power can be rightfully exercised over any member of a civilized community, against his will, is to prevent harm to others. His own good, either physical or moral, is not sufficient warrant. Although it is not true that all conservatives are stupid people, it is true that most stupid people are conservative. The only freedom which deserves the name is that of pursuing our own good, in our own way, so long as we do not attempt to deprive others of theirs, or impede their efforts to obtain it. War is an ugly thing, but not the ugliest of things. The decayed and degraded state of moral and patriotic feeling which thinks that nothing is worth war is much worse. A person may cause evil to others not only by his actions, but by his inaction, and in either case he is justly accountable to them for the injury. To tax the larger incomes at a higher percentage than the smaller is to lay a tax on industry and economy. To impose a penalty on people for having worked harder and saved more than their neighbors. To bring a child into existence without a fair prospect of being able not only to provide food for its body, but instruction and training for its mind, is a moral crime, both against the unfortunate offspring and against society. The only freedom which deserves the name is that of pursuing our own good in our own way, so long as we do not attempt to deprive others of theirs or impede their efforts to obtain it. One person with a belief is equal to 99 who have only interests. Protection, therefore, against the tyranny of the magistrate is not enough. There needs protection against the tyranny of the prevailing opinion and feeling, against the tendency of society to impose, by other means than civil penalties, its own ideas and practices as rules of conduct on those who dissent from them. A man who has nothing for which he is willing to fight, nothing which is more important than his own personal safety, is a miserable creature and has no chance of being free unless made and kept so by the exertions of better men than himself. Originality is the one thing which unoriginal minds cannot feel the use of. I have learned to seek my happiness by limiting my desires rather than in attempting to satisfy them. Liberty lies in the rights of that person whose views you find most odious. The worth of the state in the long run is the worth of the individuals composing it. He who knows only his own side of the case, argument, knows little of that. His reasons may be good, and no one may have been able to refute them, but if he is equally unable to refute the reasons on the opposite side, if he does not so much as know what they are, he has no ground for preferring either opinion. A state which dwarfs its men, in order that they may be more docile instruments in its hands, even for beneficial purposes, will find that with small men no great thing can really be accomplished. In all the more advanced communities, the great majority of things are worse done by the intervention of government than the individuals most interested in the matter would do them or cause them to be done if left to themselves. How can great minds be produced in a country where the test of great minds is agreeing in the opinion of small minds? We can never be sure that the opinion we are endeavoring to stifle is a false opinion, and if we were sure, stifling it would be an evil still. The object of universities is not to make skillful lawyers, physicians, or engineers. It is to make capable and cultivated human beings. The only way in which a human being can make some approach to knowing the whole of a subject is by hearing what can be said about it by persons of every variety of opinion, and studying all modes in which it can be looked at by every character of mind. No wise man ever acquired his wisdom in any mode but this. Nor is it in the nature of human intellect to become wise in any other manner. In this age, the mere example of nonconformity, the mere refusal to bend the knee to custom, is itself a service. Precisely because the tyranny of opinion is such as to make eccentricity a reproach, it is desirable, in order to break through that tyranny, that people should be eccentric. The pupil who is never required to do what he cannot do, never does what he can do. Whatever crushes individuality is despotism. Actions are right in proportion as they tend to promote happiness, wrong as they tend to produce the reverse of happiness. By happiness is intended pleasure and the absence of pain. It is questionable if all the mechanical inventions yet made have lightened the day's toil of any human being. To refuse a hearing to an opinion because they are sure that it is false is to assume that their certainty is the same thing as absolute certainty. All silencing of discussion is an assumption of infallibility. The liberty of the individual must be thus far limited. He must not make himself a nuisance to other people. All good things which exist are the fruits of originality. He who lets the world, or his own portion of it, choose his plan of life for him, has no need of any other faculty than the ape-like one of imitation. He who chooses his plan for himself employs all his faculties. He must use observation to see, reasoning and judgment to foresee, activity to gather materials for decision, discrimination to decide, and when he has decided, firmness and self-control to hold to his deliberate decision. It is not because men's desires are strong that they act ill. It is because their consciences are weak. Not the violent conflict between parts of the truth, but the quiet suppression of half of it is the formidable evil. There is always hope when people are forced to listen to both sides. It is when they attend to only one that errors harden into prejudices, and truth itself ceases to have the effect of truth, by being exaggerated into falsehood. The general tendency of things throughout the world is to render mediocrity the ascendant power among mankind. Those only are happy who have their minds fixed on some object other than their own happiness, on the happiness of others, on the improvement of mankind, even on some art or pursuit, followed not as a means, but as itself an ideal end. Aiming thus at something else, they find happiness by the way.